All right, good morning, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be talking with you on this beautiful, beautiful rainy day here in the Philadelphia area. And I just want to thank everyone in advance for taking time out of their schedules to join us for what I hope you'll find to be a very informative session titled 6 Critical IT Security Protections Every Business Must Have in Place Now to avoid cyber attacks, data breach lawsuits, bank fraud, and compliance penalties. I want to provide as much value as I can, but I also want to be as respectful of your time as I can be. So we're going to try to move through. Let me do a little housekeeping to start. First of all, everyone's audio is automatically muted, but that doesn't mean you can't ask questions. If you'll notice, on the upper left-hand corner, there should be a Q&A button. If you press the Q&A button, you'll have the opportunity to ask a question, and as time allows at the end, I will be glad to answer as many questions as possible. So I just want to make sure you're all aware of that. So in any case, for those of you who don't recognize my picture, and if you joined early, I just want to apologize. If it caused screen damage having my mug up there for a few minutes, my apologies. But I'm Michael Einbinder-Schatz. I'm the president of Jobeka Technology Group. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to cover a number of things. First of all, we're going to talk about the #1 security threat to your business that antivirus, firewalls, and other security protocols can't protect against. So that's right, you can have all the latest and greatest stuff, but there's a threat out there that they are useless against. We're also going to cover a shocking truth about bank fraud that most businesses don't know that could literally wipe out your bank account. And we're also going to talk about why firewalls and antivirus software aren't enough anymore. And finally, we'll talk about the changing landscape and how mobile phones, mobile devices in general, and cloud applications actually can jeopardize your organization's security and data protection. And I say that as a company that provides cloud services. So it's not that they're bad, but we have to think about what is it that we can do? What risks does that bring into the organization? And we're going to do all of this with a 30,000-foot view focus on strategy. So ultimately, what we're going to cover is how you can avoid being a sitting duck to cyber criminals and protect everything that you've worked so hard to achieve. I don't know about you. There's a number of people on this call. I don't know them all, but I'm a small business owner. I've been doing this for about 20 years. And I've just worked so hard to build my little business to where it is. And the thought that it could all be wiped out really quickly worries me. So that's why we take these protections very, very seriously. So, most of you are already using cloud computing. You already have employees using mobile devices to connect to work. And it's a trend that is absolutely not going to slow down or stop in the future. In fact, if anything, it's gaining speed. But if you think about it, most companies add these services, add these access portals in, pretty much a haphazard way. I mean, at least that's been our experience when we talk to prospective clients. Not really thinking strategically about, well, how do we add the cloud? How do we manage mobile device access to the network? So that opens the door to making very, very expensive mistakes and, quite frankly, exposing yourself to unnecessary risks. So, of course, it wouldn't be a webinar if there wasn't some kind of bonus. If you wait until the end, we've got a couple of very good offers. One of them is a security audit, and I'll talk more about that at the end. And we're offering 2 policy templates, and that is a technology acceptable use policy, often shortened to an AUP, and a bring your own device policy, which is a BYOD. Now, while these have been drafted up by our lawyer, we are not offering legal advice on this. I just want to make sure I'm clear. These are templates. You can customize them in your business. You can run them past your legal counsel, and then you will be armed with some great tools that will help you get a handle on this. It's about a $900 value, and we're doing it for free. So make sure you hang around to the end, and I'll show you how you can get that those bonuses. All right, this is where I have to ramble about myself for a moment. So some of you out there know me, some of you don't know me. Who the heck am I? You can see from the picture, yes, I'm a guy who likes to wear hats. That's part of my midlife crisis. I've accumulated a hat collection, not quite the way Imelda Marcos accumulated shoes, but it's probably a little bit excessive. I'll admit that myself. But seriously, I'm a veteran IT consultant, and I've specialized in helping organizations get the most out of their IT investment, maximizing productivity and performance while minimizing risk. I started out working in the IT industry about 30 years ago. I started out working for a videotape distributor in Bucks County. When they computerized, I suddenly found myself managing a mini system. I found that I had an aptitude for it. And I moved on from there and started working for one of the 3 largest law firms in Philadelphia, first as trainer, and ultimately as the network manager. Had about 900 users nationwide. And I was the guy responsible for keeping everything connected and working. And I really saw an opportunity to move out of the larger environment and work with smaller companies and make a difference every day, because at the end of the day, I like working with people. I like making a difference more quickly. So I started my business in 1996. And as it says there, the focus was on making a difference every day in small to medium organizations. I guess I like instant gratification, instant feedback. That's just more of my way. And there's nothing better than working with small businesses and watching them evolve. I've consulted with and implemented successful solutions for hundreds of clients over the years. And it's been a pleasure doing so and learning and watching this industry evolve at an amazing pace. And finally, I'm the author of a book, Simplify IT, or Simplify It, if you want to leave the periods out, The Business Owner's Guide to Eliminating Technology Stress. So I'm really proud of that book, and also proud of the fact that I don't have a closing quote at the end of that. That would be bad. Mrs. Rendon, my English teacher in high school, would get on my case about that. But more on that later. So let's talk about the biggest danger facing organizations. It's a great quote from Andy Grove, the former CEO of Intel. Success breeds complacency. Complacency breeds failure. Only the paranoid survive. So in the context of our discussion today, you want to think about success as it follows. That success could be defined as, well, you haven't been attacked yet. Or if you were compromised, perhaps the consequences weren't significant. So therefore, because of your success at not being a target yet, you've become complacent about security measures in your organization. That's not really a strategy. It's not something that you want to hold up as being successful. You're just waiting for something to happen at that point. So I think Grove's quote here is right on point. So let me give you a little bit of an overview of the cybercrime business. The first thing is that I think there's a mistaken perception out there that that a lot of the hackers, a lot of the miscreants out there are just that. You know, they're pimply-faced kids halfway around the world, sitting in front of their computers in the middle of the night. You know, they have pasty skin because they don't get enough sunlight, and they're probably vitamin D deficient as well. And that's what we're really up against. That's wrong. The key point here is that this is a business. Cybercrime rings are incredibly sophisticated. They're well-funded, they're well-organized, and unlike other businesses, they don't have to follow the rules. So there's times I wish I didn't have to follow the rules, but you know, we do. And I'm going to go into more detail on that, but I want you to think about that for a moment. I mean, we are talking about incredibly sophisticated businesses that are proliferating and profitable by hacking and committing cybercrime. So let's talk for a moment about the evolution of crime, okay? I'm guessing most of us here weren't around in the old days, but it was actually pretty easy. If you got yourself a gun or a knife, you could hide in an alley. Crime was often a one-to-one thing. You jumped out of an alley. When someone walked by, you said, stick them up, and you took their money. As long as you didn't get caught, things were good, right? Overhead was certainly low. There were some risks involved, but again, as long as you didn't get caught. Now, any business looks to evolve and looks to get a better return on its investment. So how could criminals get a better return on their investment? At this point, it was the investment of time. Well, technology provided the answer with the railroads. So railroads, first of all, put a lot of people together in one environment. These were people that generally had money. If they were going across the country, you were talking about areas that weren't well policed. You were talking about areas that were desolate. And you were talking about people that could afford the money for a ticket, which back in the days, you know, that really separated the classes a lot. So the criminals could stop and rob a train, and you might have 200 or 300 people that they could rob at one time. And because all of us are here in the Northeast, I just want to digress for a moment and say that hopefully, if you haven't heard, there was a train crash at the Hoboken station of New Jersey Transit today. And my thoughts go out to all the people who were injured and the families of those killed. At this point, only one fatality reported. So let's just keep those people in our thoughts. So the criminals are thinking, how can we grow the business? Technology has provided the answer. Now, today, thanks to continued advancements in technology, we have trends like third-party cloud platforms. So the new train robberies are really cybercrime related. So if you think about it, if a criminal wanted to rob, say, 100,000 people at once, they couldn't do it the old-fashioned way. Today, that all you need really is you have to hack into one large platform, and you can instantly rob and gather the data on many, many people, millions even. And there's an increasing number of attacks that make the news every day. In fact, this slide really needs to be updated because of the Yahoo hack that was only reported recently, but goes back a couple of years. I mean, just an amazing number of records compromised. So I don't know if people here remember the JP Morgan credit card hack. So in this case, it wasn't one person stealing a credit card. It was one person or, perhaps a small group of people, and they stole tens of millions, estimated 80 million personal credit cards, and they hit 7 million small to medium businesses in one fell swoop. Think about this. This was right on the heels of Target and Home Depot, which were, I think, 40 million credit cards at Target and 56 million credit cards from Home Depot. So think about that for a moment. Never in the history of mankind has any one person or small group of people been able to rob so many, so quickly, and in one fell swoop. It's just really a game changer. Now, the digital underground has become a thriving black market. I'd like to talk about that for a minute. Because remember, I said before, it's a business, and it is a thriving and growing business. It's not a few guys in a garage hanging out, and anything you might need to steal the data and rob people can be purchased. That's right, you can purchase these tools online. You can purchase them easily. Now, if there's anyone out there thinking of getting into a new business, hopefully that's not the case. But you can now buy credit card details, social security numbers, a number of other programs and devices and software that allow you to set up your own cyber crime business. In fact, there's even software service providers out there that will give you hacking kits and you pay a monthly fee. for access to the latest and greatest tools. So credit card details fetch $2 to $90 per card. iTunes account, $8. Physical credit cards obviously are worth more. Card cloners, $200 to $300 each. I went to a great seminar that was given by one of the security companies, and I just remember this story because it was actually kind of fascinating. He talked about the card cloners. He had one with him, and he said told about an experience going to Vegas, and I think he stayed at Treasure Island, whatever the hotel is where the Cirque du Soleil Beatles Love show is. And he took his room key, which was all pimped out with Beatles Love, on the front and so on and so forth. And he cloned his credit card to that, and he used that card, his room card that he had now cloned as a credit card. He used it the entire trip. It didn't raise one eyebrow. Not one person asked for anything, any form of identification or anything. Again, just a amazing and scary story. Fake ATMs, yes, you can have fake ATMs for $35,000 and grab all the information. So again, the point here is anyone can easily buy training tools and services for committing fraud, hacking systems, buying stolen credit cards, setting up fake websites, etc. So here's a common misperception. We're small. Nobody would bother to hack us, right? Well, I think you can tell by the large type here, wrong. First of all, the larger companies that you saw listed before, they have very sophisticated security systems in place. They are not easy to hack. So therefore, think about it. If they are getting hacked, getting into your business is probably a cakewalk, which is why, if you think about it, you are a bigger target than the larger institutions. The prize may not be as big, but you're actually far easier to rob than larger institutions, and it makes you a prime target. And again, since cyber criminals have the automation tools, they can make a large sum of money simply by targeting a few hundred or perhaps a few thousand small businesses. So you may be thinking, why don't you hear about these attacks? And let me just give you some statistics on this. First of all, 1 in 5 small businesses falls victim to cybercrime every year. The number's growing. We are the low-hanging fruit because we don't believe we're a target. And by the way, I know this business. I'm in this business. I've often had this thought. It's a very easy thought to have. I don't know, no one wants my stuff. It's nothing. Well, you got to be careful. If it's available, you're at risk. And half of all cyber attacks are aimed at small and medium businesses. So one of the reasons that we don't hear a lot about this is because they don't make the national news. National news really wants to focus on big stories. I mean, if you have Target at 40 million and Home Depot at 56 million credit cards being stolen, I mean, those are huge stories. The other thing is that small businesses often don't know they've been hacked. That's a scary thought. You're hacked, but you don't know you've been hacked, or they're afraid about reporting it. They don't want to report it because they don't want to be embarrassed, or perhaps they're afraid of legal and reputational consequences. So that's something to think about there. We're not seeing those stories very often, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening, and it is absolutely happening. So here's a number for everyone, $201. What does it mean? Well, $201 is the average estimated cost associated with a single stolen record, according to the Ponemon Institute. Now, realistically, you have to realize that that number cannot begin to encompass all of the costs of a data breach to your organization. Let's look at what some of those are. First of all, there's reputational damage. Okay, what does a data breach actually cost your business in terms of your reputation if people know about it? Will you lose any clients? Okay, what's the value of a client? Do you track that in your business? What's the lifetime value? So what's the cost of a loss of a client? What about class action lawsuits or individual lawsuits? Okay, first of all, if you get sued, what does that then mean? Well, legal fees, and that can pile up very, very quickly. There could also be compliance lawsuits. Okay, so you may not be sued by clients, but you could be sued for non-compliance. What does it cost you to replace your data? All right, so if your data's been wiped out, stolen, encrypted, whatever it is, how much time does it take? Are you down? So there's downtime, loss of productivity. And also, what are the hard costs? What are you paying your IT company to actually recover that data? Because it might not have been protected. So here's the final thing to think about on this slide. You have to be a good steward of your client's information. Remember, even for our clients, though they may be small businesses, their data is critical to them. So we owe it to our clients, who are our whole reason for being in business, that we must, be a good steward. We must shepherd their data as carefully as possible. So I like this slide because I had to update it recently. For those of you who signed up from the last email blast that I put out there, you might have seen the number was 82,000 malware threats per day. That data was 2 years old. And I just updated this. It's actually in 2 years gone from 82,000 to just under 1 million new malware threats being released every single day. Now think about that. You can't think that just a simple firewall and antivirus is good enough these days. With that kind of proliferation and sophistication of these attacks, having a firewall and antivirus, in my opinion, is like trying to stop, like a tank with a squirt gun. It's just not effective anymore. It's not going to cut it. So let's talk for a moment about bank fraud. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, but the FDIC does not protect you from bank fraud. And the bank is not responsible for getting your money back. Now, for consumers who have your bank accounts emptied by an ACH scam, the regulations can cap the liability at $50, so long as the fraud is reported in a timely manner. But for corporations and other entities, things are actually a lot more complicated. And whether the victim has to pay can vary from bank to bank, quite frankly. So think about that for a moment. It's not cut and dry. Obviously, one of the keys, no matter what, is that you have to report things as quickly as possible. But even then, you may have followed all the rules and you may still be on the hook for some of that money that was taken from your account. So here are some tips for protecting yourself. And quite frankly, the tips on this slide, I'm thinking it's probably worth your entire time investment today. And I don't mean to sound glib when I'm saying that, but this is really important information. So if any of you have been playing solitaire or any of that stuff, this is the time to listen. The first one is cancel your debit cards. They are actually the #1 way that bank accounts get compromised. Second, you want to have a dedicated PC for online banking, and don't use that PC for accessing any other websites or for email or for social media sites or, God forbid, downloading files and applications. Okay? You don't have to go buy an expensive machine for this. It could be an old machine that you just, reload from scratch with nothing, make sure there's no malware on it, and all you do on that is online banking. Okay, really, really critical. You want to sign up for email alerts from your bank whenever you get a withdrawal over $100. Okay, now some people think, oh, I'm so overloaded with emails. It's true, we all are. There's tools out there from it. I just want to say I'm a big fan of SaneBox. I started using that. We don't sell it. You sign up for it online. Phenomenal service. But this is an alert you want to receive because it's immediate and you can see that something's going on. And as a business owner, it gives you the ability to get control of what's going on with your bank account very, very quickly. If you do wire transfers, you want to require your signature, not somebody else's, for any wire transfers. You want to have your money spread out in multiple accounts. That way you'll minimize risk. And finally, buy cyber fraud insurance. Okay, this is becoming more readily available, more cost effective as the insurance companies figure out and the actuaries figure out about losses and what the costs actually are. And more people sign up for this. It's actually, I've seen the costs go down in this area. Now, one thing I didn't put on here, but it's an interesting thing to think about for anyone out there who's a business owner. You want to make sure you reconcile your accounts really quickly. So we have a requirement internally here that they're reconciled within a week of receiving them. Because remember, I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that timing is the key in reporting anything. So if you're reconciling quickly, you can have things jump out at you. So I'm going to take a few minutes here and I'm going to talk about social media, which has a number of threats associated with it. Social media is amazingly addictive. It is without a doubt the heroin of our day in many ways. So an interesting thing to think about here is that there are 600,000 Facebook accounts that get hacked every single day. The screenshot here is a picture of what's called a phishing email. I don't know about you, I've gotten many of these over the years. If you're not familiar with phishing, it's basically an email attempt at social engineering by designing a fake email that looks like the real thing that's going to get you to click on it. I want to apologize. It looks like we just had some kind of a data loss. I'm going to bring that back right away. So let's hold on one moment here. We lost our cloud connection. Very interesting. Okay, I'm hoping everyone is still here. We had a very interesting loss of internet connection. That's not actually very interesting. I apologize for the inconvenience. Let me quickly get back to the slide where we were. So we were talking about phishing hacks. So again, the whole idea with phishing is that it's an attempt to get you to click on something and reveal some personal information that can then be used to access your data in some way. That is the number one threat of social media. The number two threat of social media is that it is a huge, huge time suck. I referred to it a minute ago as the heroin of our day. And, you know, you have to think about the amount of time that people are spending on social media. You can see from the chart here how much time that people spend. And frankly, that time can just disappear quickly. As a user of social media myself, I have to admit that I have checked my Facebook account. I do check it during the day. And sometimes I think I'm going to go on for about a minute and a half. And the next thing I know, I look up and a half hour has gone by. So this can affect your employees just as easily, and you have to be careful and think about being aware of what they are doing and what is the impact on your business. Finally, what about PR? I don't know if anyone out there remembers this. We had literally somebody posted themselves at a Burger King standing in the bins of lettuce. Now, you would think that would be enough to keep me from going to Burger King ever again, but I do like Burger King. But in all seriousness, what was the cost of the organization? What was the cost of the company of this being posted? It took 15 minutes, by the way. It took 15 minutes for the vigilantes to find out who this one person was, and obviously they got fired. But what's the cost to your organization for bad PR, from inappropriate social media posts? So I want to talk about ransomware. People use the term crypto locker oftentimes to refer to ransomware. Crypto locker is kind of like the word Xerox or Kleenex to their respective products. But ransomware is a huge danger on the rise. I love this quote right here. A writer asking a literary agent what kind of writing pays the most. Her answer, ransom notes. And if you think about it, that's kind of what's happening in the cybercrime world. This is the most pervasive threat that's out there now. There have been many, many variants out there. Crypto Locker came out to prominence in about 2013. Now, mind you, ransomware has been around in some form or another for the past probably 2 decades. But Crypto Locker really brought attention to it back in 2013. And when it was originally shut down in May of 2014, the hackers had extorted about $3 million. So they're not asking for a lot of money, but the threat is there that they're going to wipe everything out. And there's also the chance that what if you don't get the encryption key, and then your files are wiped. So there have been a lot of variants such as Crypto Wall, Crypto Bit, Crypto Defense, multiple versions of Crypto Wall, CTB Locker, and Locky. I like that one. Let's take ransomware and give it a cute name. So this is one that you may see now. We do get these from time to time. You'll get what looks like an invoice. You'll open up the invoice thinking that it's from a vendor, and it'll tell you that the numbers might appear jumbled, or it'll say, hey, you have to enable macros. You go, well, I need to see this invoice. You enable the macros, and that begins encrypting all of the files on your system. Tesla Crypt is another one, and Torrent Locker, which is also distributed via spam campaigns. And then there is Key Ranger. And I think the thing that's interesting about Key Ranger that's worth noting is that it's really the first fully functioning ransomware designed to lock Mac applications. So again, people think, oh, well, I'm on a Mac. I'm safe. There's a lot of reasons that you're not necessarily safe on a Mac. And I'm not knocking Macs, by the way. Love them. But I think there's this false sense of security. Shadow IT is basically the pervasive piece right now, is that your company data can be out there in shadow IT environments. Basically, think of things like Dropbox. Are your employees sharing data, company data, out on Dropbox accounts? And is that data then safe? Do you actually have any idea where that data is? How much of it is out there? And by the way, as the article there references, from a little less than 2 years ago, 7 million Dropbox passwords were hacked. So that means if your employees have data out there on one of those systems and attacked, then your data is at risk and you have no way of knowing about it. So the next frontier is mobile, and the chart there shows the growth of mobile malware, and it's accelerating very quickly. So everyone out there uses mobile phones. I mean, you know, I know I was at the Temple game the other day, and my friend's father, who's like 80 something, he still has a flip phone, you know, so we don't have to worry about everyone. But all of us in business, we all have mobile phones. They're smartphones. We're all accessing email. Many of us are accessing documents. How many people have passwords on their phone? Are they complex passwords? Do you have the ability to remotely wipe your phone if it's lost or stolen? These are some basic protections that need to be in place. Shockingly, they're not in place for many businesses. So a lot of people bring their own devices, BYOD, bring your own device to business, and they start accessing corporate data. And as an organization, as an entity, we don't know what's going on with our data. We're not even often thinking about it. So strategically, we need to make that shift. So here's an area where mobile computing is in the news. So here's something to think about. If you have a device that's lost or stolen and the data was not encrypted, you may have in fact violated a Pennsylvania or New Jersey data breach law. So if you have laptop computers out there and they're not encrypted and the device gets stolen, you can be at risk of penalties even if the data was not taken. The case that's referenced here is a hospice. Employee had one notebook stolen. The data was not encrypted. It was ultimately recovered. It was determined that nothing had been stolen, but because of the compliance issues, the hospice was fined $50,000. That's a big hit. So, you know, ounce of protection is much better than a pound of cure. Spam remains the single biggest driver of big breaches today. If we look at some of the biggest data breaches in recent memory, JP Morgan, Target, RSA Security come to mind. They all begin with poison email. Brian Krebs from his book, Spam Nation. You have to have good spam protection in place. Even with that, some stuff is going to slip through, but this is where the phishing attempts are coming in. And phishing is a huge, huge threat. People are vulnerable. So what is the number one threat? Well, I'm going to give you three of them. It's people, and then it's people, and then it's people. I can't hammer that home enough. Over 60% of malware infections are directly tied to social engineering or phishing. So the old social engineering, by the way, is when someone would call you on the phone and say, hey, Michael from IT, we're doing some work. We need to reset a few things. I need to get into your account. I just need your password for the Google one. Oh, yeah, Michael, that's great. Of course, here's my password. That has become more and more sophisticated with phishing attacks. And it is, again, the biggest reason. The biggest spread of malware is due to issues with people. This is why you can have all the latest and greatest systems in place, but you have to be careful about the people side. So strategically, continuing education is the key. I'm going to get to a slide in a moment that's going to give you more information about the steps you can take, and education is on there, but I want to stress this one first. Continuing education of your employees about the dangers out there and how to handle them, how to stop and think, how to give pause in our busy, frenetic lives so that we don't make these mistakes is the number one thing, in my opinion. So what can you do to protect yourself? We don't all want to go around looking like this, right? Scared all the time, biting our nails. So here are the answers. The first is you want a solid UTM, and that's Unified Threat Management. That's modern tech speak for firewall. Don't just want random haphazard security software. I can't tell you how many times, oh, I have a firewall. Well, no, you have firewall software. It's not really being maintained. Software on a computer can shut down and you don't know it. You really need a solid UTM device at the edge of your network that's protecting you multiple ways. You have to have spam filtering in place. In fact, for our clients, we use a double layer spam filtering. Because we found that the single layer is just not good enough. You want to control what websites your employees are accessing. And this is, you just want to be really careful here. It might vary from business to business, organization to organization, but you want to at least have the ability to control this, the ability to know where people are going, say what is and isn't appropriate, limit some dangers. It's called content filtering. You want to absolutely have the ability to lock down the use of third-party cloud applications. Again, this doesn't mean you have to do all of these things, but you need to think about this stuff strategically and determine with your IT partner what makes the most sense. Absolutely need to implement a mobile device policy and security protocols. Okay, so we're talking about things like bring your own device policy, acceptable use policy, and by the way, what the difference is, just in case you don't know out there, is that an acceptable use policy basically is a policy that states what is acceptable for your employees to do on company-owned equipment. Okay, so you're accessing our network, the web, all of this stuff from our company computers. Here's what you can't do. Here's what you can't do. Bring your own device policy flips that around and says, okay, you're bringing in your devices to act, and you're also accessing company data through those devices. Here's what we have the right to do, such as wiping data if you've lost it. And don't come back to us and say, oh, I found it between my couch cushions and you wiped out all of my pictures of my kid and I'm unhappy and I'm going to sue you. You need to have those things out there right away so that there's, just some expectation setting. You want to force passwords that are difficult to hack. And I just always like to say this here, difficult to hack doesn't mean difficult to remember. There are a lot of really simple strategies on passwords. And it's a little beyond the scope of this webinar here, but there's really effective strategies out there that can give you rock solid passwords that are very difficult to hack, but not difficult for end users to remember. Of course, you need to back up your systems properly, and this is going to protect against just a number of threats. And I already mentioned the AUP and BYOD policies, and I think I touched a little bit on employee education. No, seriously, I probably should change the slide and put that at the top. Employee education, we just have to invest a little bit of time to protect us from the huge costs of recovery and losses and all of that stuff that we talked about before, the $201 per record, plus all those other associated costs. Okay, so if an employee has to take a 30-minute video every now and then, that's going to talk about how to spot phishing, emails, that's a very worthwhile 30 minutes in my opinion. Absolutely worth it. And then you want to lock down the ability for employees to use home PCs and devices to access your network and cloud applications. Now, again, this doesn't mean totally restrict. I want to go back to, again, that key word I said at the beginning, and you probably heard me mention a number of times today, strategic. You just cannot haphazardly provide access to this. It has to all be thought through so that we know, as a business owner, that our employees are accessing what we want them to access from where we can control that level of access in a secure manner. So the bottom line is you need to get serious about protecting your company against cybercrime, but what does that look like? So let's talk about what it looks like. There's 3 steps to protecting your organization, okay? So here's what we would recommend. The first step is doing a threat assessment. And I'm just going to read this here. What's lacking in your security right now? How are employees using your company-owned devices? What third-party cloud apps are you using? Are your systems truly backed up? Where are you exposed to risk? Whose job is it to make sure that your network is protected? And how do you know if they're doing their job? This is all stuff that I've mentioned in this webinar. But the first step is always assess. Assess. What are the exposure? You know, we don't just, I mean, if the car is acting up or we're worried about the car or we're about to take a long trip in the car, what do? We take it in and we have it assessed. Do we need oil? Are the brakes okay? So on and so forth. Because without that, how are we going to draw up an action plan? Okay, and by the way, I probably just shouldn't use the car analogy because my car got hit big yesterday from the good folks over at Lexus who told me I had an axle problem, which is obviously, you know, and by the way, I was happy that they looked at it. I wasn't happy to write the check. Based on what's discovered, what do we need to do to ensure our systems, data, and operations are secure from theft, compromise, and corruption? And then the third step is ongoing maintenance. So again, you can't do a set it and forget it approach to security. Your hackers aren't. And if I use the car analogy again, I mean, you don't buy a car and get it serviced once and never get it serviced again. You know, when you go in for an oil change regularly, you're doing it because if you don't do it, you know your engine's ultimately going to seize up. You know that you're going to have performance problems. And in this case, you know, the hackers are going to continue to devise new ways, and you need to work with somebody that is aware of what things are going on and what tools are out there and strategies are out there to help protect you. So here's the good news. The first step is actually free, and I talked about it earlier. At no cost or obligation, I am glad to come to your organization and conduct a threat assessment. So what we'll do in that is we would perform an in-depth analysis of your organization's current cyber threat defense readiness, including all the things listed there: firewall, antivirus, spam, acceptable use policy, mobile security, backups, business continuity, employee training, and more. Then what we'll do is we'll review our findings with you and your IT support team. So this is not, we're not coming in saying, hey, let's replace your IT support team. We're going to give you some free information and we'll share it with you and we'll share it with your IT support team. Let's see how everyone's doing. And then finally, we'll provide you with some solid steps that you can take to improve your defenses. Okay, so everyone who signed up for today will get this: our technology acceptable use policy and our bring your own device policy, and you can easily customize and use these in your business free. And I'm going to show you how to get that in a moment. It's very, very easy, and you'll be able to download and have access to those documents in under 1 minute, probably. After the webinar is over. So 3 things you need to know, and this is with regards to the threat assessment. I can only work with 5 new companies at this time, and it's simply a matter of bandwidth. We put a lot of time into doing these. We do them for free, a few at a time, and we invest time because we want to provide high value. I'd love to offer it to everyone, but the reality is, you know, I only have so many hours in a day. We come out, there's 2 of us, we do the initial assessment, we come back, there's 2 of us, it takes a certain amount of time. So if you sign up for that, I just want you to do it with eyes open, that you're genuinely serious about being more strategic with your IT. Don't sign up if you're just mildly curious. If you have a couple of questions, that's fine. Give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm glad to answer things. The second thing is there's no obligation to buy or do anything. And I just want to stress that for a moment, okay? No heavy sales pressure, because I don't like that myself. It's just not the way I operate. I'm never going to pressure you into buying anything or working with me. It has to be a good fit both ways. Now, some people may decide that they want to hire us and work with us, and we're certainly thrilled when that happens, but we want it to be your decision. All that I want to do is I want to provide you with a lot of value. I want to answer your questions. I want to show you some ways to be smarter and more strategic about your IT investments. And for many of you, probably uncover some big risks you're exposing yourself to that you might not have even been aware of. Now, finally, I want to make sure that I can absolutely help you before we book this consultation. So if you do indicate that you're interested, I'll need to schedule a few minutes on the phone to ask you some basic questions and help ensure that our meeting is as productive as possible. Again, we want to make sure we can be of help to you in providing this assessment. Okay, so let's see what we can do next. What you can do now, if you're interested in those downloads, which again, they're free to everybody on this call. There's absolutely no harm. You're not going to get spammed, I promise you. That we don't sell our addresses to anybody or any of that, but you go to www.joebecca.com/cybersecurity. And I'm just going to show you what that screen looks like there. You'll fill out a form. There's a checkbox on the form. We'll take the first 5 who indicate that they're interested for the free threat assessment. Let me see. What I want to do here is I will show you this and bring it over. So here's the form. When you go to a cybersecurity claim, all we need is your name, email, phone, and company. And yes, there's that little checkbox. Notice there's a download now button. After you filled out the information, you click on that, you'll literally be taken to a screen immediately where you can download those policies. So let's see where we are on any questions. We finished in a reasonable amount of time. We're just over 50 minutes. So I hope I did that fast enough and allows everyone to get back to their days. And I am not seeing any questions coming in. So what that means is that I absolutely did an amazing job in providing you with information, so much so that your heads are ready to explode, that you have no questions for me. But in all seriousness, I hope you found this valuable. I really, really want to thank you for all of your time. And if I can be of any help, please do not hesitate to reach out. And that's going to do it for today's webinar. Again, thanks for all of your time.